made me interested in creating a platform like this was seeing the amount of censorship on platforms like Facebook and Twitter, where people would work for years creating a identity on these platforms and make all these connections, create all of this content, do advertisement, and they would grow these massive followings or even small followings. And then one day they would wake up and realize, all of the effort, everything they put into this was just stripped away from them for some arbitrary reason.
All right. Well, on that, I think we should have a chat about the dBuzz stuff. So we've got Nathan sent on the show this week. Nathan's been doing really great work getting around a lot of different podcasts and interviews the last few weeks, partly thanks to Chris Rice, who's really supported him to set a lot of that up. So good to have you on the show, Nathan. I don't know if you want to say a quick thing or two about what dBuzz is and how it benefits Hive and everything like that.
Yes, dBuzz is a short form platform that you can post your social media content to, and then it's stored on the Hive blockchain. And the idea behind creating dBuzz was preserving free speech and giving ownership to our users. And one of the driving forces that they kind of made me interested in creating a platform like this was seeing the amount of censorship on platforms like Facebook and Twitter, where people would work for years creating a identity on these platforms and make all these connections, create all of this content, do advertisement, and they would grow these massive followings or even small followings. And then one day they would wake up and realize, all of the effort, everything they put into this was just stripped away from them for some arbitrary reason or political reason, or they, violated some unclear term that Facebook or Twitter has put in place. And I use this example of my friend PJ Entrepreneur, who changed his name, legally changed his name to Entrepreneur, and his passport literally says Entrepreneur now. And he changed his name on Facebook, and he had, I think, like 15,000 followers and 5,000 friends and a huge amount of connections and all of his messages and conversations there. He had traveled all around the world, kind of building his Facebook profile, and he changed his name to PJ Entrepreneur, and they disabled his account, and they've never given it back to him because they just don't believe, his name is really Entrepreneur. And so you have cases like this all the time on Web2 platforms where users create these identities and they're just stripped away. And on Hive, that can never happen. So if you use a Hive application, that all of the connections, all of your people that you follow or follow you back, all of the content that you create there, it lives forever. No one can take that away from you. You own your account, you own those connections, and you own that content. And for me, that's super powerful thing. And I think that it really had, for us to live in a free and open society where we have the freedom of speech, we have to have these platforms available for us to use. We're just going to see a world where big tech companies control everything that we see and hear and control the entire narrative. And they almost already do, because, the vast majority of people are asleep right now. And so
to me,
yeah.
To me, I just want to interrupt a little bit, but to me, to reiterate what you're saying, I think the way I see it is it's like anything that's like a public good that should be a human digital right, let's say. I haven't quite put my finger on the exact terminology yet, but it's coming over a time of discussing this with people like you, where anything that like speech or the right to a community or the right to a digital account or right to build your own digital brand and ID without having to use KYC, a right to be able to transact, a right to have your content made available. These types of things are like, it feels like this technology allows them to be digital human rights as long as they're put on an ownerless layer that's outside of the platform. It's like this technology enables us to provide these as fundamental digital human rights, I guess, or at least fundamental digital rights. Is that kind of what the way you're thinking about this as well?
Yes, 100%. I think that it's freedom of speech should be a human right, to be able to express ourselves and say what we believe online should never be taken away. And I think that we've really seen that over the past few years with people who went against the narrative of what was going on in the world, had their voices taken away from them. And yeah, for me that's unacceptable.
Sure, sure. So tell us a little bit more about dBuzz for like a couple of minutes so we can understand what it's trying to do and how it does that.
Yeah, so on dBuzz right now, one of the things that I'd mentioned it earlier is that we're planning to open source all of our code, and beyond just doing the um, providing a platform where users can um, post content and on their accounts. We're also wanting to become very active in the development of Web3 tools. And so, part of open sourcing dBuzz and creating version 4, we want to condense our code into packages where um, basically each part of the dBuzz platform comes in open source packages where every aspect of the entire site can be pulled out in a package and used in other projects. So everything from the login, we had mentioned about doing the MetaMask login, creating very simple to use npm packages with documentation for the Hive community and the Web3 community to be able to use these different technologies, and also um, working with your team, you and Dan's team, working on the SBK network, on the Honeycomb. We're also wanting to have the decentralized DEX on as part of market.dbuzz. So there's a lot of different things that our team's like kind of gearing up for in this coming year, and more than a social media company, we want to become a development company and provide tools, because ultimately our goal is to um, is to protect freedom of speech. And I feel like that can be done better by providing technology where other developers can come in and use this technology to kind of expand upon we're already what we've already built.
Clear. And what was the definition of NMP there? NPM,
Uh,
sorry.
npm package. So npm packages are um, JavaScript packages that developers use. They're like, it's like a library of code. So anyone who is coding on JavaScript um, projects can access, like, there's a massive library of npm packages, which is open source code. All JavaScript projects use these, right? And so
Right.
it's basically like a small library of code that does like very specific thing. So that's kind of what we're planning on doing with dBuzz, is like taking the code that we're currently running and building npm packages
Sure.
that all the community has access to.
That's exactly what we're doing on Speak Network as well. And we're also, similar to you, we're about to open source 3Speak as well. and that will all be done in NPM packages. I'm just exposing my lack of dev knowledge there to the audience.
I use the example of kind of like breaking the site into Lego pieces. So it's like we're basically turning each piece of the site from the sign up process to the news feed, to the trending, all of it into like different Lego blocks, right? That anybody can use to kind of build their own applications.
Yeah, this is great, and this is exactly how we're working on ours as well. Where anything that we build, anyone can go copy it and use it for their own apps. You know, for free. We're not going to charge anyone for anything. We just want to contribute to the open source. So it'd be interesting maybe to get on a separate call with you at some point to scope out what you're planning to do from your open source NPM packages and what we're hoping to do. And if they're both like Hive based, then there's probably some scope for sharing some of the scope on things like that as well.
I think so, definitely. And I've enjoyed joining some of the three speak meetings lately, and kind of seeing what you guys are working on, and trying to find a way that we can contribute as well. So I definitely think that there's opportunity there, and I've spoken with Dan about this as well. Kind of, if you guys are working on something, there's no need for us both to do the same exact
Right.
thing twice. We can kind of share resources to create these packages that we're both going to need and use.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking forward to that, and I look forward to working with other projects on Hive like that as well. So let's move on to another point here. You've mentioned dBuzz is a funnel from Twitter to Hive, and Dan and I talk about this a lot in regards to Web 2, where we think Web 2 platforms should be used by Web 3 operators as traffic funnels to Web 3 properties that they own outright. But you're saying here that dBuzz should be a funnel, essentially a place where people from Web 2 are funneled to, right? So that they can then get onto Hive. What's your thinking behind that?
Yeah, so part of version 4 is simplifying the onboarding process for dBuzz. We've talked about doing the ceramic login and having various methods of being able to onboard people and get them in the door faster, where they can come in to a community and see the value there of posting their content and creating this short form content, and interacting with a community of people. And for me and Chris, we kind of believe that short form content is the lowest barrier to entry for the average user to become interested in this technology, because uh, the ability to create a post or to upload their images is so easy, and then they can see, oh, I'm able to earn off this. I can bring my friends here and post content and communicate, versus trying to directly onboard them onto Hive. It there seems to be some kind of hang up there, because we've been doing this for 3 years, and I've seen like the biggest hang up is like trying to onboard or explain to people Hive, or like how to go through the onboarding process. And so for me, it seems like simplifying the onboarding process to where we can just get them in the door, right? The first thing is to get them in the door and show them the value, and then slowly um, they become exposed to Hive, and then slowly introduced to Hive, so they can create an account, they can see how their keys work, and then they see the value there to go through the full onboarding process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and this is actually something I really like the way you guys stepped up about 8 months ago to start integrating the ceramic off-chain system. And this, I think, is going to be part of the login process. Be interested to see your guys' input to this as well as we build this out. But we, on 3Speak and on Speak Network and any other app that wants to integrate this, we certainly think that having a way where a user can get a very simple, basic ceramic account that's off-chain, where there's only one key to manage, and then they can post using either their MetaMask or directly from a Ceramic account onto off-chain indexes that can then be shown on Hive platforms as content within the trending feeds. We think that's a massive first step. That's a free sign up. There's no like, you can create as many accounts as you like. No one cares, right? And then it's like, if we then attach a proxy account to that, so every time you create a new account, or there's a certain point where when you create a new account on the off-chain system, you'll qualify to get a proxy Hive account attached to your account, and then that can start earning Hive. And then at a certain point, that has enough Hive in it to pay for a brand new Hive account for you personally. And then you could just click a button to say upgrade to a Hive account or something like that. We think that that's going to be at least an interesting login process, sign-up process to explore. And I know that you guys have been keen on integrating something similar to that as well, with posting with MetaMask and off-chain accounts.
So one thing that we've discussed quite a bit is having a system in place, where if someone creates a ceramic account and comes on and starts posting after, and kind of like basically what you mentioned, after they create so much content, they basically get a Hive account for free. So there's like actions that they have to take. Maybe it's so many posts, maybe it's so many comments, maybe they have to fill out their profile. And after they've done this different task, it basically makes them eligible to get a free Hive account. And Chris is here with me, and he was mentioning, using Hive as our Twitter as a funnel to Hive through dBuzz, and he was basically saying that the users that are on Twitter, if they're funneled into dBuzz, it's a platform that they're already somewhat familiar with because that's where they're coming from, right? They're coming from Twitter to dBuzz, and it's a very similar platform in the fact that it's a short form content where you post short form posts or pictures, right? And so that's kind of his idea on that.
Sure, sounds good. I'm looking forward to all this. So another one here was the belief that short form content gets over rewarded is similar to what They Call Me Dan was saying, with an example of a poker tournament host over rewarding the winners. More players, short form users will join Hive because of it. It's an interesting point. I mean, like this whole issue with rewarding short form content. Me as a video platform operator, I very clearly see that the length of the video and the amount of effort put into the video isn't necessarily what the value of the video is. And this is like to the extreme on short form content, because some short form content that goes viral, okay, it might only be X number of letters, but if it went viral and got like 500,000 views or something, or 1,000,000 views or whatever, then that's a pretty valuable piece of content, even if it's only 28 words or whatever, So yeah, it's obviously an ongoing issue on the Hive ecosystem, because people are worried that there's obviously manipulation that can potentially happen there, where people open fake accounts and mine Hive by posting short form fake content, right? So there's this weird world of balance that you've got to strike, and it'd be interested to hear what you guys are doing about that anyway.
Right. So kind of the idea is that, if people are posting content on dBuzz or other platforms, and it's the reward, they're calling it over rewarded. More people will see that this content, we're able to post content, and there's large rewards. You'll have more people coming in and creating content, which onboards more people to Hive, and then those rewards are going to be split between more and more people till to a point to where then it's no longer being over rewarded, because there's so many new users that are all kind of like competing for those upvotes, right? So I don't know, like we've had quite a a rocky start, to say the least, kind of with the moderation issues on Hive. And of course, like we have a policy of, not posting plagiarism or various forms of that. I mean, there's the Hive Watchers list of things, right? And so we kind of adhere to that to some extent, and but I feel like unique content that is original. I don't really see the issue with them getting this upvotes. So there's still a little, I guess, I don't want to say confusion in the community, but definitely there's some tension there on some forms of content that's posted and the reward that they get for that.
Yeah, that's why having one coin to do all the curation for everything isn't good, because they'll sort of take on its own niche, even if it doesn't have a niche. And Hive people sort of value quality with how much effort's put in, but that couldn't be furthest from the truth. It's one key, but as Matt pointed out, you need other things as well. Like if it goes viral, then that's helping Hive more than a 10,000 word essay that gets one view. Um, Whether that's right or wrong, pretty irrelevant in terms of the value that it brings to Hive.
I mean,
That's
I think
why.
the fact that
Mm,
you just are onboarding so many users, ultimately brings value to Hive. And if you're running off users, it just kind of puts a bad taste in everyone's mouth for the entire ecosystem versus being welcoming to these people and encouraging people to create unique content on the chain.
I mean, there's no doubt about it that some people have been run off Hive as a result of this, right? Um, Whether or not there's been more value captured within Hive is debatable because of the people being run off. But there's definitely an attrition of excellent content creators that have been lost that shouldn't have been. However, my answer to this is layer two. I just think that layer twos that cater to their communities are going to be able to do this a lot better than the layer one ever will. And then if you're really keen on influencing the layer one, you can go and buy the layer one token on the open market. Um, I just think the layer twos are going to have all sorts of different ways to curate and regulate content that's far more powerful than layer one can adapt to. And they're going to try lots of different things as well. And there's going to be one layer two that, or a few layer twos that just catch it and they go on fire, right? And they're going to get loads of signups, loads of really happy content creators that get rewarded in the right way because that layer two specifically catered to the needs of that community. And if layer one doesn't adapt, layer one will get consumed, right? And so I just see that layer two is going to become very, very, very influential. I think they're going to become very, very powerful. And I think they're going to be able to buy up a decent chunk of layer one and then influence the layer one in the way that they want separately. That's certainly a potential for where this could go anyway.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. And that's, kind of what we're wanting to do with version 4 of dBuzz is explore the opportunity of doing different things on layer 2 and working with the SBK team and kind of like observing your you guys' method of doing things and how can we do similar things, um, and having like some off chain options for posting content and doing these things on the second layer and possibly having a reward token that is on layer 2 versus on the layer 1, right?
Obviously, the problem with the layer two tokens is how do you build a sustainable economic model in them? I mean, I think the path to that in my mind is fairly clear. It's just we've got to build all the tech behind that. So, like, build utility, build the ability to mine NFTs by holding more tokens and attach those NFTs to certain rare memes in the community, for example. Things like having various business models built into these tokens. If we can find a way to build the resource credit system that Hive has into some of the layer 2 tokens as well, I think that's going to result in a sustainable layer 2 ecosystem. And so we've just got to think about that. I know lots of other layer 2 tokens have just released tokens and they're just distribution mechanisms. There's no demand for the tokens, so they're just getting sold off, right? We need to release tokens that have got a reason to hold and use them so that they have an inherent demand to them, so that they have a buy-side demand, and then they become, there's ultimately you create buyers or holders of last resort in these layer 2 tokens that will not sell their layer 2 tokens at any price, otherwise they lose access to the layer 2. And then at that point you can have sustainable layer 2 economies. But that's coming. I don't think that's going to be impossible to solve.
I think that's the next big fun thing after getting the Speak network, solving off-chain incentivization, off-chain storage, off-chain accounts. The next fun thing is, okay, we've given the correct parameters, we believe, with the point system to protect communities from themselves. Then, how do you make these communities sustainable? How do you bring life to these coins? Of course, you just named a bunch of things, and really the answer is going to be the value is there. You just have to encapsulate. People love to be notarized, recognized, contribute. People can see their contributions. This sort of being able to rise in ranks, build reputation within a community. The communities that can do this right, it's like tapping into the abundance. It's like the token then brings on life of its own, but you have to be able to capture it from that point of view. Community contribution. One of the big things is, communities are going to need their own decentralized infrastructure. So people who are storing that sort of content, videos, and off-chain data of that community can be awarded NFTs that recognize that. Well, how much did it cost to make that NFT? What is that NFT's worth? Well, it's worth a lot to the person that earned it. Didn't cost the community anything. So these are sort of out of the box ways you got to think to bring value to these tokens. And there's a bunch of different ways, and this is going to be fun to game theorize and figure this out, and run it through practice and see what works, what doesn't work. But I think that's going to be, at least for me, a very exciting time.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And like you said, like creating value versus launching a token without actually creating something. So basically building a product and then having the token come later, versus, a lot of these ICOs that you see, they come out and they launch their ICO coin and then they raise a lot of money, and then they're promising to release a product, and then, whatever happens and they disappear, right? Versus building a product, growing a community, and then distributing that token to the community. And I love the way that you guys did it, kind of airdropping it to the Hive community. And we've discussed various different ways, and we still haven't committed to actually doing a token. We wanted to keep it layer 1 as long as possible, but I think at this point, it's something that is inevitable to eventually come. But I just want, and I've talked to Chris about this a lot. It's like, if we do something like that, we really have to think out the tokenomics of, one, the distribution, and then 2, how it's going to interact with our platform. And I love, like, what you were saying about having it tied to NFTs, where holding it, give you minting ability for NFTs, and you had some kind of ranking system where people who held it and create content and all the different interactions there kind of boost your rank in the community. So yeah, I think that all of that's very interesting. It's just gonna take some time of like sitting down and like getting it right first.
Yeah,
You
sure.
can brute force these things. I mean, you can be like, how do I bring value to this token? And I've been talking to several hivers about doing this who are, sort of in this line of thinking. It's like, all right, you have a token that has no value or no inherent value for the community. There's no reason to really hold it. It's like, well, if I had to figure a way out, by all means necessary, you can build a game that accepts that token and burns it. The game's fun. People love games. Now you have this coin. You can only play this game if you have this coin. I mean, when you start thinking on that, like, there is no, like, there's always a way to give value to something if you think outside the box. And that's just another way. It doesn't have to be inherent in the actual protocol. You can bring value to the protocol from the outset.
Can I just add, I think Our principle is always to do something like that, where we built FreeSpeak before, and there's still no FreeSpeak token, right? And at some point, maybe we'll have a FreeSpeak token. But what we did is we wanted to build ourselves out of FreeSpeak because of the free speech issue. So the Speak network allows us and any other video platform and any other video infrastructure operators to get involved in a tokenomic system and become part owner in it, right? And it kind of just made me think there for a minute. It's cool that you didn't release a token on dBuzz, because you do have this potential to get, say, I've seen people post in the room, just you targeting 10,000 users and then you might consider releasing a token, which is like you justifying your model and you're asking people to take less risk on as a result, which is cool. I think that's a nice way to do it. But then, just while you've been talking, it just made me think, have you ever thought about, and of course, I'm not saying you have to follow this advice at all, it's probably terrible, but have you ever thought about like identifying the things that are common to all short form media platforms and then building a token so that all short form platforms can run that token without obviously any inherent bias towards you guys in terms of token ownership, such that you can encourage other short form blogging platforms to run their platform on top of the protocol that you guys build for short form platforms?
So I don't want to speak on that like a lot, but I mean, ultimately the idea is to open source, everything that we're doing so everybody can use it.